Israel is apologizing for the airstrike that killed 7 aid workers yesterday. The IDF says the strike was a mistake that followed a misidentification, and it's thoroughly investigating the incident.
Meanwhile, Iran continues to threaten retaliation against Israelis for an attack that killed 2 of its generals. Israel's defense chief warns that anyone who hits Israel will pay a heavy price. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
This morning, the IDF chief of staff addressed the tragedy that took the lives of a team of international workers from World Central Kitchen as they returned from an aid delivery in Gaza.
I want to be very clear. The strike was not carried out with the intention of harming WCK aid workers. This incident was a grave mistake. Israel is at a war with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. We are sorry for the unintentional harm to the members of WCK.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu personally spoke with some of the leaders of the countries the victims were from.
This happens in war. We're checking this thoroughly. We're in touch with the governments, and we will do everything for this not to happen again.
In the U.S., the White House is expressing outrage over how dangerous it is for aid workers in Gaza.
More than 200 aid workers have been killed in this conflict, making it one of the worst for aid workers in recent history. This incident is emblematic of a larger problem and evidence of why distribution of aid in Gaza has been so challenging.
Meanwhile, the Israeli military continues to prepare for its controversial invasion of Rafah, Hamas's last stronghold, but also temporary home to more than 1 million Gazan refugees. While the Biden administration opposes the invasion, former Vice President Mike Pence says it's a necessity.
Israel has no choice but to invade Rafah and hunt down and destroy Hamas once and for all.
Rather than criticize Israel, Pence said Americans should fully support its war efforts against enemies sworn to wipe it off the map.
If the Palestinians laid down their weapons right now and released all hostages, we'd have peace. But if Israelis laid down their weapons, we'd have no Israel.
On another front, Israel is bracing for Iran retaliating after a top Iranian general and his aide were killed by a missile strike in Syria that's being blamed on Israelis. But Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant warns whoever hits Israel will pay a heavy price.
We operate everywhere, every day, in order to prevent our enemies from gaining strength and in order to make it clear to anyone who acts against us, all over the Middle East, that the price for action against Israel will be a heavy one.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, while the world is calling for more aid deliveries to Gaza, Israel says it's doing everything in its power to help more trucks cross the border. Ephraim Graham has more on that story from our CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, as relief groups warn of critical food shortages in Gaza, Israeli officials say the shipments are getting in. CBN's Julie Stahl has this report from the Kerem Shalom border crossing.
Israel insists it is facilitating the movement of goods into the Gaza Strip. Colonel Elad Goren is in charge of the team monitoring and coordinating humanitarian aid deliveries. He says Israel is working to expand delivery and is attempting to do so by adding resources and having staff work longer hours.
Israel is doing everything it can to mitigate the humanitarian consequences of Hamas's action in the Gaza Strip.
The passage behind me leads to the gate to the Gaza Strip. Before the war, there were about 70 food trucks a day going from Kerem Shalom through that gate into Gaza. Now there's about 110 humanitarian aid trucks a day taking food into the Gaza Strip.
In case of who is getting it, there are thousands of people. Hamas is not with uniform. There are civilians. We are moving trucks to the civilians, and the civilians are getting the food, and hopefully that will be a continuous process, mostly with the UN organizations and not other. And I hope that the UN will take responsibility over their steps.
Goren says there's no limit on the amount of aid allowed in and blames any problems on the other side of the crossing. While we could see trucks entering and dropping off goods, piles of supplies waited to be distributed.
Often, there is hundreds of trucks worth of aid waiting on the Gazan side to be picked up. That is the biggest obstacle to aid reaching Gaza in need.
Even so, Goren tells CBN News aid groups keep asking for more without any specifics on how much is truly needed.
Just keep saying more, and it doesn't matter if we will pass 1,000 trucks here and they won't able to collect it, they will say that there's a humanitarian crisis.
Israel maintains 99% of the trucks go through after an inspection. The rest are held back to remove any questionable or harmful materials.
The trucks that are rejected are sent back for repackaging because they contain materials that Hamas can use for their terrorist activities.
These problems aren't new. In 2016, CBN News saw the complex realities of operating the Kerem Shalom crossing. Ami Shaked, coordinator at the time, told us they lived and worked under constant threat of attack.
This crossing point had a bad history with attacks. In 2008, it was totally destroyed by attack of Hamas groups. In 2012, he was attacked by Jihad Global from Egypt, and Egypt is not far away from here, it's 100 meters. And between these things, he was attacked by rockets and mortars from Gaza side.
Shaked also revealed how attempted smuggling of materials for Hamas existed back then.
I can tell you that in the last months we captured two kinds of important chemicals. Let's say that they're enough for 5,000 rockets.
Israel also claimed Hamas would divert concrete shipments meant for rebuilding Gaza to construct the terrorists' attack tunnels.
We found our cement on tunnels underground inside Gaza.
Despite the obstacles, Israel says it remains committed to getting humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza as the conflict with Hamas continues. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Kerem Shalom Crossing, Israel.
Here at home, astronomers, scientists, and much of America have this Monday, April 8th, circled on their calendars. That's when a total solar eclipse is expected to pass over parts of the U.S. from southern Texas to the east coast of Maine. CBN's Paul Petit shows us how people are preparing for the event and how eclipses were interpreted during the Bible times.
I am excited. I am.
It can be a spectacle like no other.
We're all in. Yeah, should be a great day.
And right now, it's all the buzz.
We're going to make a day of it. Maybe the weekend.
Eclipse Mania is sweeping the nation.
It's pretty dramatic. A total solar eclipse is a very unique event because the moon, by a strange coincidence, happens to be exactly the same apparent size in our sky as the sun. Of course, the moon's much smaller than the sun, but it's also a lot closer, and it's just at precisely the right distance that it blocks out the sun while leaving the area immediately around the sun, which means that we get to see the solar atmosphere called the corona.
5 major U.S. cities will be in the path of totality. That's the 115-mile-wide track falling under the moon's central shadow.
Not only, of course, does it get dark because the body of the sun is no longer visible and even noticeably colder, but we have this remarkable display, and it's often said that animals like birds will be fooled into thinking that night has fallen quite quickly.
The roughly 4-minute spectacle has had some state leaders preparing for months.
We're expecting about 1 million extra people from that Thursday night, the 4th, through Tuesday, the 9th.
As a result, many schools in Arkansas and other states are canceling classes. Texas officials are even warning residents to top off their gas tank and stock up on food. In Ohio, the governor signed an executive order to increase staffing for emergency management. They're all treating the April 8 eclipse like a major travel holiday.
Any way you cut it, the interstates and highways are going to be crowded.
More than 31 million people will be in the path of totality when the eclipse passes over North America. As exciting as it is for us today, eclipses took on a much different tone in ancient times.
The ancient people saw celestial phenomenon as omens.
Using a dating system that intersects NASA data with the ancient Assyrian calendar, Associates for Bible Research say it shows an eclipse passed over Nineveh in mid-8th century BC. That event was preceded and followed by a series of natural disasters.
And lo and behold, what does the Bible show us? Immediately after this, a renegade prophet named Jonah shows up, and he's preaching repentance at a time when they would be open to it that normally they wouldn't because of the omens.
Stripling says the same dating method shows a celestial spectacle happening in 33 AD on April the 3rd. Approximately the same time, the Gospels record the earth turning dark the day of Jesus' crucifixion.
Picture this. As the stone is rolling to seal the tomb, on the horizon, the moon is beginning to appear, and guess what? It's a lunar eclipse. Listen, ancient people would have been powerfully impacted by this.
However you feel the impact from this event, countless people worldwide will have an eye to the sky April 8 to see something that has been drawing awe since time began.
I've got to get some glasses. I don't know where to get them.
Paul Petit, CBN News.
Any day's a good day to pair those glasses with a sermon of repentance, Gordon.
Yes, it is. But the moon and the sun are signs, and you can read that in the Bible. It's in chapter 1 of the first book, Genesis, and it's verse 14. That these things are signs for us, and signs for years and for days and for months and for seasons. There's also the sign of when the sun no longer gives forth its light and the moon no longer gives forth its light. That's a sign that Jesus says we should look to the heavens, for our redemption draweth nigh. I've been in the path of totality. It was long ago. I was just a child, and we were living on a farm. And all nature just went crazy when the sun no longer shone. It was amazing how the animals reacted. The birds and all the farm animals just were stunned that this was going on, and they went into a panic. So if you're in the path of totality, look around you as it's happening and just see how nature responds to it. Realize, though, that the moon is a sign, the sun is a sign, the days are a sign, and in that the day draweth nigh for our redemption. Ashley?
You got some glasses? You got to check it out?
I don't look at the sun. That's
right,
no.
but we got to get glasses in order to do that. So I got to make sure I get some glasses too, because here we can partially see it, right?
We're gonna be.
Yeah.
I've forgotten what the word is like penumbra or something like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Powerful stuff.